I found this book titled The Master Secret. It's written by Albert Boynton Storms. And the purpose of this, and many of the books that I bring to the channel, is my own curiosity. Some of it may resonate with you, with me, maybe not, maybe yes. Some of it seems a little Christian-based or heavy on the religion. But I believe, that if we filter all that and remove our prejudice, somewhere in this we may find something that may help us along the journey. We may reveal to ourselves a part of the puzzle. And so that is my intention. So I'm not endorsing any of this. My own life is just going with the flow and showing up for life when it's there, and allow myself to be a witness. It's been really hard sometimes, but as I've gotten older, I've learned a lot. And I'm very blessed that I'm learning every day something new. If you're new to my channel, I'm Daisy, your hostess, and you are in my book playlist. This book was written in 1913 and published by Jennings and Graham. Again, the title of this book is The Master Secret. So welcome, and to our Fortune community, welcome back. All right, let's get started. Foreword. If the Christian revelation had no other consequence than to impress us that in the sight of heaven, all that is essentially human is infinitely precious, that result alone would leave the Christian religion of inestimable value to the world. Could any teaching be more explicit than the teaching of Jesus upon this matter? The very hairs of your head are numbered. Fear not. Ye are of more value than many sparrows, and not one of them is forgotten in the sight of God. Jesus took a little child and set him in the midst of his disciples, and from the child taught at once the simplest and the deepest truth, the ultimate worth in the sight of God of unspoiled human trust and human love. Humanity becomes skeptical as to its own worthfulness, and cynical and cruel. Jesus brings us back to an appreciation of the value of whatever is essentially human, in contrast with the cynical indifference with which Pharisaical hardness of heart could look upon a woman that was a sinner. Jesus, with chivalrous courtesy and delicacy, lifted into esteem forevermore the value of a person. Humanity can never forget his word. Neither do I condemn thee. Go and sin no more. The watchword of humanity in its progress towards the light of a new day is taken from the lips of Jesus. Ye are of value. There is no argument for the greatness of man like the fact of the greatness of his need. The humblest of men, kicked and buffeted by his fellows and by his fate, little esteemed, and finding it difficult to lift his head in self-respect, nevertheless needs for the satisfaction of his life, truth and immortality, love and God. His need has imperial proportions. Nothing less than heaven and divinity can appease his hunger of soul. No values less than eternal can satisfy him. Some years in the ministry and other years in contact with student life in college work have led me through an increasingly sympathetic study of the problem of human life to appreciate the incomparable value of the method of the Master in discovering the values of life. In part, the thoughts contained in these pages have found expression in college chapel talks and in the pulpit of Central Avenue Church. The reception they have there received leads me to hope that they may find an equally generous and kindly reception by the larger audience to which they are now addressed. One chapter, an ancient psalm of life, takes up an Old Testament character and a psalm as showing the fundamental harmony between the Old and New dispensations. The chapter on Christianity and the Supernatural is republished by permission from the Methodist Review. Albert Boynton Storms, Central Avenue Methodist Episcopal Church, Indianapolis, Indiana. End of foreword. Stick with me, hit that like button, and let's move on now to the Master Secret. The Master Secret. We start with a quote. All alone, alone, God shall speak to thee out of the sky. The years will bring us hastening to their goal, a little more of calmness and of trust, with still the old, old doubt of death and dust, and still the expectancy within the soul. O Father, as we go to meet the years, we ask not joy that fame or pleasure brings, but some calm knowledge of the sum of things, a hint of glory glimmering over tears, that he who walks with sanction from thy hand some token of its presence may have seen, beneath which we may tread the path serene into the stillness of the unknown land. End quote. Sill. A quote by Isaiah, chapter 63, verse 3. I have trodden the winepress alone. This is the cry of a soul that reaches us out of the far past. I have trodden the winepress alone. The cry has in it the pathos of a great sorrow and strikes the deepest chord in the human heart. A human voice, rich and resonant, may awaken sympathetic response from the chords of a harp, thus creating its own accompaniment. And so the appeal of a noble grief is profound and universal. It is one of the paradoxes of life that sorrow, which we treat as an enemy, from which we shrink and which we seek to banish, counting ourselves happy only when sorrow is absent, that unwelcome sorrow is yet the angel that opens the heart to life's most precious treasures. The memory of a great sorrow is cherished. The literature that is immortal strikes this deep note. Priam's grief as sung by Homer, David's lament for his son, Rizpah's sleepless vigilance as she frightened away the beasts of prey in the night and the vultures by day in her lonely watch upon the rock of Gilboa, where her sons hung in judicial expiation for the sins of Saul. Job's soul cry in the anguish of uncertainty as to the goodness of God never lose the power of their appeal to the human heart. It is the appeal of sorrow. Deep calleth unto deep. The vision recorded in Isaiah is set in the time of the captivity. No people ever identified themselves with the ideals and the future of their nation more absolutely than the Hebrews. That the citizen existed for the state was a familiar and commanding idea among the ancients. The Greek found his personal worthfulness, his individual definition, in his citizenship. Apart from his city or his state, he would have lost significance. He lived for the state. There was an elegance, a splendor about Greek patriotism that has never been equaled elsewhere. The Roman, too, with his stoical devotion to the state as the embodiment of law and authority, developed a patriotism not unlike that of the modern Japanese. Patriotism thus becomes a kind of stern religion. The individual counts not his life dear unto himself if its sacrifice will add to the glory of the state or help to maintain and to vindicate the political ideals of his state. Modern Western peoples have developed a similar passionate patriotism to the state as the expression of the ideals of liberty. The Hebrews, the race chosen to bring to humanity its noblest religious ideas, the race with a genius for God, conceived the state as a theocracy. Jehovah was their super sovereign, and Jehovah had a great purpose to be achieved through his chosen people. The humblest Hebrew shared in the glory of the divine purpose. Through this people, God was to shine upon the nations. Inevitably, they came to identify the national life, the stability and power of their government with the integrity and strength of the divine purpose. To them, it was incredible that their nation should not be preserved. Their prophets had one supreme and never-ending task. It was to hold this people to humility of spirit and to the religious ideals. The tendency was strong to become fanatically overconfident, nationally selfish, politically arrogant, and religiously as intolerant as superficial. When the Hebrew nation was humiliated before the nations and left crushed and bleeding in the dust, her great prophets saw in this the discipline of Jehovah. The ideals of the Hebrews should not perish. The nation should be purged and purified. A remnant should carry forward the divine purpose. The prophets had the saving salt of idealism. They conceived the nation vividly as a person, as a suffering servant of Jehovah. There then arose before Israel's great prophet the sublimest ideal vision that ever filled the soul of a seer with divine afflatus. Out of the bruised nation there arises before his vision one of whose face was so marred, more than the face of any man, that men were astonished at him. They esteemed him stricken, smitten of God, and afflicted. And it seemed as though he should be cut off, with none left to perpetuate him or to declare his generation. Yet a more marvelous conception supersedes this, of one despised and rejected of men, a man of sorrows and acquainted with grief, and as one from whom men hide their faces. The piteous and repulsive and even hideous becomes glorious in beauty and power. A new truth is coming to view. This silent sufferer who, as a sheep before his shearers, is dumb, opening not his mouth, has saving power. It pleased the Lord to bruise him, to put him to grief. Out of this deep humiliation shall spring an immortal power that shall make the kings of the earth shut their mouths before him in awe. He shall see of the travail of his soul and shall be satisfied. Surely he hath borne our griefs and carried our sorrows. He was wounded for our transgressions. He was bruised for our iniquities. The chastisement of our peace was upon him, and with his stripes we are healed. All we like sheep have gone astray. We have turned every one to his own way, and the Lord hath laid on him the iniquity of us all. This one shall indeed divide a portion with the great, and the spoil with the strong. So the vision in the 63rd of Isaiah is of one that cometh from Edom, with dyed garments from Bozrah. Out from the south the prophet sees a deliverer coming, not with an army, but alone. From the ruins of Jerusalem, with desolated temple and cruel humiliation, the seer beholds a Redeemer approaching, swaying forward, not as one who staggers in weakness, but as one who is invincible in power. And the one is heard to say, I have trodden the winepress alone. There is here not alone the boast of single-handed victory, but the cry of a great and noble sorrow. This man of the prophet's vision has entered the great solitude where the soul must meet duty and destiny and God alone. The noblest of the red men used to send their youth singly and alone into the solitudes and the silences, there for days and nights to remain silent under the stars, that they might become aware of the Great Spirit and of their own souls. It would be well if, far more than we do, we too could send our youth into the solitude and the silence, In the desire for seclusion, often interpreted as moodiness of young people as they come face to face with the great change from youth to maturity in facing the mystery of life, there should be opportunity for self-knowledge, self-reverence, and self-mastery. The secret that lies deeply in the method of the Master is the secret of reverence for one's own soul and reverence for God. Out of these reverences springs the complementary reverence for other people's souls. All hopeful and sound social philosophy must take up this principle of reverence for the person. And it is in the Sinaitic solitudes and silences that men grow reverent and independent and sufficient. Only as men become aware of God and of their own souls can they stand upon their own feet and hear intelligently the voice of the Lord. We hear much today about socializing industry, about the social state, and about the social significance of Christianity. As a recognition of the diffusion of the spirit of Christianity and the increasing complexity of the industrial, economic, and political relations of the age, this has significance. But there is the greater need of grasping the truth that life is essentially individual. All social relationships, however important, are yet superficial compared with the soul's own individuality. Individualism is the deepest philosophy of life. Individualists, we must all be or become flotsam and jetsam. The social powers of men lie in the fact that as individuals, they stand independent and above mere relationships and can both criticize and control them. Socialism, in the sense of an absolute principle, is self-destructive. Society can be Christian and enduring only as its members become independent and intelligent enough to make society Christian, through the adoption of the spirit of social service, not by reversing the process and expecting to make men Christian by socializing industry and by the aid of social institutions. However much value may be attached to wholesome environment cannot create anything. It can only offer favorable soil in which living seed may spring to fruitage. A spiritual desert will never produce the fruits of righteousness, however much it may be tilled and watered. We need to come back to the everlasting truth that the soul and God alone stand sure. It would be well if we could restore the significance of individual conversion as the initiation of individual religious life. The outward accompaniments, visible phenomena, the tragic experiences are not essential. We could no more restore the camp meeting of 100 years ago with its bodily exercises, which in themselves profited little, than the rude social customs of the frontier. But when the seriousness of the soul's personal approach to God was lost or dimmed, spiritual life began to lose its definite and distinctive character. A socialized Christianity tends to vagueness. The profound personal conviction of relationship with God is blurred. Religion becomes a mild altruism, good-natured, but lacking both in clearness of vision and strength of conviction. The mere seeking of the external aspects of intense spiritual experiences may become, in the highest degree, artificial, a sort of pretense, a play. But the bleaching of religion out into commonplace morality and mere decency of living is to rob religion of any deep significance or compelling power and to blur the eternal issues of life. As a matter of conventions merely, the tendency to sag is irresistible. Religion may of necessity find its expression in social service, but yet social service is not religion. Religion is the soul's conscious response to the Spirit and the will of God. The soul must stand solitary before God to become self-conscious. After all has been said that may be said about the social significance of Christianity, it still remains true that Jesus selected a few individual men and sent them forth with the leaven of the kingdom in their souls. This was and is the method of the Master. And God's method of forging great souls is the master secret of humanity. After the most diligent industry has dug up and sifted out all that may be found in the heredity and environment of a great man, the master secret still lies there in the solitude of his own soul. How he met the world in duty and God, and what became the master motive of his life. That is the master secret. The transcendent interest of the Gospels lies in this, that they contain a marvelous revelation of the soul of Christ. Biographies in the ordinary sense, the Gospels are not. In the deeper sense, as a revelation of the soul of their subject, the Gospels are unequaled. The Gospels afford a glimpse into the Holy of Holies of the Virgin's soul. It seems to me all discussion of the virgin birth, as though this question could be raised and considered in cold blood, as any piece of historical criticism, borders upon profanity and misses something essential, as life itself, in the research of the biologists. Into the holy mystery of the soul of Mary we are permitted to look. Reverence alone becomes us. Around the Bethlehem manger cradle and in the temple are groups of devout souls that have vision for the glory of God. At the age of 12, Jesus in the temple utters a most significant word. Wist ye not that I must be about my Father's business? Nothing more until his public ministry. A mass of detail that would fill volumes might have given to fill these blank intervening pages and have served only to confuse the signally significant thing, the deep lying motive, the soul secret, the true character of the individuality of Jesus. Let us come near here in the deepest reverence to the power of motherhood in forging the soul of the child. Mary's maternal prayer has been treasured. Out of the spiritual passion of her race, she voices the Magnificat. The spirit of prophecy breathes through her, and in that atmosphere Jesus came. Again at the baptism and in the temptation, a soul secret is revealed. The attitude of Jesus towards the Father's will, and his attitude towards the subtle temptations to world mastery by the methods of the world, make his inner life as an open book. So also the prayers of Jesus treasured for us as they were graven upon the minds of his disciples who heard him as he prayed, or to whom he told the prayers that were forged in his soul in the storm and stress of his sorrow. The prayers of Jesus given in the most generous and sacred and divine confidence constitute a soul revelation nowhere equaled. So too, the words from the cross are a revelation. And this is the method of God, the master secret of humanity, that out of the disciple of solitude, the soul shall come with the beauty and strength of God. For every soul must become like Christ. Every soul must become a Savior. Merely to endure sorrow or temptation is not enough. The use we make of life is the main thing. We too must march breast forward as Jesus did. We too must know his baptism. Our personal sorrows are unbearable because we meet them pettily and selfishly. Out from every great sorrow, and our deepest experiences are inseparably linked with sorrow, we should come as Jesus did, with faces chastened, but smitten with the light of eternal day. We have no right to pass through any deep experience and come forth less than when we entered upon it. Not to crush and bruise and weaken, but to strengthen and ennoble us is the discipline of life given. The bruised reed he will not break, and the smoking flax he will not quench. It is a sin to meet sorrow and not be made better by its touch. The strength of God is promised, not merely that we may somehow endure, but that we may be more than conquerors. We have the right to pray, "Let the beauty of the Lord our God be upon us." But the prayer cannot be answered unless our faces are lifted to the skies. All chastening seemeth for the present to be not joyous but grievous, yet afterward it yieldeth peaceable fruit unto them that are exercised thereby. And this is the method of God, the master secret of humanity. Quote, "Then welcome each rebuff that turns earth's smoothness rough, each sting that bids not sit nor stand but go. Be our joys 3 parts pain, strive and hold cheap the strain, learn nor account the pang, dare never grudge the throe." End quote. The inner secret of a great life is always of fascinating interest. It will never cease to be of profound interest to seek an answer to the question, how did Lincoln come to be? Here, too, we are given a glimpse into soul secrets. He lost his mother when he was but 9 years old, but her influence was ineffaceable. She seems to have been much above the average of her associates in intelligence and native refinement. But the hardships of a pioneer life crushed out her life. This early bereavement left its mark upon Lincoln. In his early manhood, he loved with all the chivalrous devotion of his nature Anne Rutledge, who sickened and died under circumstances most pathetic. Lincoln spent with her the last hour of her consciousness. She had relapsed in her brain fever into coma, and Lincoln went out into the midnight of a great grief that for months threatened to unsettle his reason. Biographers have in general made but slight reference to the deeply personal experiences of Lincoln. Yet these great sorrows, followed by a life of continuous disappointments, culminating in the taking into his own soul a nation's woe, produced the Lincoln whom we know. Out of deep sorrow the man came. His character was forged in the storm and stress of the elemental forces that have made great souls in all ages. He too could say, "I have trodden the winepress alone." We do not know how diamonds are made. Nature guards her secret well. We know that diamonds do not rot. As you hold the precious stone in your hand, hither and thither, turning it to see the rich light play in its mysterious depths, you marvel as to the master secret by which carbon is turned into splendor of light. And so we marvel at the transfiguration of personality into divine beauty and power. But here the secret is not so jealously guarded. God gives us glimpses into the souls of men as he has into the soul of his Son. It is not in May days of transient delight that greatness of soul is achieved, but in the storm and stress, in the solitudes, in the awful silence. No life is strong that merely flits in the sunbeams of summer days. Often God will not let us be so silly and trifling and superficial as we wish. The waters come in upon our souls. Out of the deeps we cry to God, and he hears our cry, not merely to lift us out of the waters into which we are sinking through unbelief, but to make us forever nobler and mightier for that lift of the divine hand. And here is an quote and extract from the notebook of Phillips Brooks, titled Life of Brooks Allen, Volume 2, page 366. Quote, "There are those who hold life like a precious stone, hither and thither turning it to see the rich light play in its mysterious depths, and other men to whom life seems a bridge, by which they pass to things which lie beyond, and others still who count life but as wine, in which they drink their pledges to their friends. But then there are to whom life's dearness lies in that it is the pressure of God's hand, with which he holds our feeble hand in love, and makes us to know ourselves in knowing him." End of the first chapter. All right, if you haven't done so, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel if you would like, hit the bell so you'll get notified, and meet me at the next video for the next section titled The Master Motive.